We clearly underestimate the insects. These are not that simple creatures they can seem. Among them you can find real giants, very poisonous bugs with painful bite. They can make you mad with their sounds. And not only, in this section I'll show you the biggest insects ever in the world right now. I'll also tell you about the main record breakers that'll strike you. How big can an insect be? Could it be the size of an adult human, or even larger than one, as in this photo? It's possible that scientists will someday discover a similar species, but the current record holder is not less surprising, and it is a dragonfly. This dragonfly is unusual. It's prehistoric. Is anyone surprised? After all, it's known that millions of years ago, animals were much larger than modern creatures. When dragonflies aren't known for their incredible size these days, prehistoric ones of the species Meganeuropsis hermiana reached 16.9 inches in length and had a wingspan of 27.6 inches. That's an incredible amount. It's the size of some modern birds like pigeons. Compared to their modern counterparts, these giants were dozens of times larger. This dragonfly lived 350 to 298 million years ago and posed a threat to its contemporaries. Scientists believe they were very formidable and fed on birds, not small insects like modern dragonflies. It's good that such giants have long been extinct. Otherwise, it'd be uncomfortable to live in a world with mega dragonflies. Even in the modern world, there are enough abnormal insects. Sometimes they can be so gigantic that you can't even believe that they're insects, as in the case of stick bugs. Yes, this is an insect, not a mutant branch or a stick that's been brought to life with the help of a neural network. These are the longest insects on the planet, and perhaps even the longest insects of all time, because some of them reach 23.6 inches in length, even more than that of mega dragonfly. The name of these creatures speaks for itself. The strange shape of their body is very similar to a stick or a branch. Actually, such a shape and coloration of stick bugs is only to their benefit. They can easily get lost among the leaves and trees and won't be detected by predators who hunt them. What's more, stick bugs can also shed and regenerate their limbs to escape predator attacks. As for the record holder, it was found a few years ago. It's about a bug of the species Phryganistria chinensis zhao. The specimen reached 24.4 inches in length. It's amazing how entomologists aren't afraid to pick up such large creatures. However, the bugs aren't actually dangerous. At the same time, they aren't harmless. To defend themselves, some insects produce a nasty substance that scares off hungry predators. Others bleed foul-smelling hemolymph from joints in their bodies, and still others can use their leg spines to hurt an enemy. And yet, it's difficult to realize that stick bug is an insect, not some other class or type of animals. Still, insects, in the opinion of many people, should not look like this, but something like this. It's more like a classic insect. Although I've acted hastily saying classic, it's a real monster and a mutant. In fact, there's no mutation at all. It's just a weta, the most massive insect on the planet. Some individuals can weigh up to 2.5 ounces. It's about the weight of 2 sparrows, 3 nightingales, or a small cuckoo. But who are these wetas? Actually, it's difficult to say because this is the collective name of more than 100 species of insects. Still, they're most related to grasshoppers, so you can think of them as giant, overgrown grasshoppers. They live in New Zealand. That's understandable. But why are wetas so gigantic? Scientists believe they're an example of island gigantism. Among other things, the giant size of the weta is associated with the absence of small mammals in their habitat. The insects have occupied their ecological niche. In short, wetas are not in the food chain where they should be, and that's why they've grown so large. The giant weta is not the only big guy in the world of bugs. There's at least one more heavyweight, not inferior to the New Zealand grasshopper. It's the Goliath beetle. As you know, scientists only call Goliaths someone truly huge, and this beetle is no exception. Generally, Goliath beetles weigh up to 1.8 ounces, but researchers believe that Goliaths can fatten up to 3.5 ounces, a beetle the size of a small bird. How about that? Moreover, Goliath beetles are related to small birds not only by their size, but their abilities because they can fly too. It would seem unrealistic with such a weight for an insect. Nevertheless, the Goliath proves that nature can surprise. Maybe they at least don't fly often and still spend most of their time on the ground? Well, they don't. The Goliath beetle surprises us here. It likes to fly a lot and often, majorly spending its time in the crowns of trees and rarely descending to the ground in search of food. The females land to lay their eggs. On the one hand, it's incredible, but on the other hand, due to their love of flying, the Goliaths are very dangerous for us. After all, it's it's one thing when an almost weightless mosquito crashes into you, and quite another when such an overgrown beetle can fly into your forehead. This, by the way, sometimes happens in Central and Southeast Africa, where these humongous beetles live. Still, it's better to be hit in the forehead by a Goliath beetle, a heavy but otherwise harmless insect, than by an Asian giant hornet. Yes, it's smaller than the Goliath beetle and much lighter, but it's much more dangerous. Given that it's a hornet, you already understand the danger. But that's not all. This monster is the largest hornet on the planet. The length of some individuals exceeds 2 inches, and the sting of this creature alone can be more than half a centimeter in length. The sting of this hornet is considered much more dangerous than the stings of many other hornets because the Asian giant produces a very highly toxic poison. In addition, it can sting repeatedly. Its sting is not disposable, unlike that of bees. A person who's allergic to hornet venom is a potential victim of this insect and is unlikely to survive. According to monstrous statistics, up to 40 people die each year from the stings of these hornets. In comparison to these hornets, the sharks everyone fears so much takes lives of about 10 people a year. These hornets live mainly in the Far East and Asian countries, so residents and visitors to these areas should be vigilant. You don't have to be big to be equipped with insane venom. That's proven by another very dangerous insect, the Maricopa harvester ant. This is one of its species. In general, they're all quite dangerous, but this one in particular. It has one of the most powerful poisons of any insect on the planet. Scientists have found that this ant has an incredibly toxic venom that's 12 times stronger than that of the honeybee. Have you ever been stung by a bee? If so, you definitely remember how painful it is. Now imagine how hard this little monster can sting. A human being wouldn't probably be killed by such venom unless the insect has some rare form of allergy or in case your immune system's very weak. In theory, Maricopas can finish off a human. An adult person only needs to receive 350 doses of venom to become a victim. Therefore, if you fall into Maricopa's anthill, you may not get up again. Did you know that ants are not only some of the most dangerous, but also oldest insects of all time? Amazingly, they appeared on Earth about 130 million years ago. Turns out that ants met with many dinosaurs, including T-Rex, Megalodon, Titanoboa, and other prehistoric luminaries. Now, ants are small. Many of them are only a centimeter long, including that dangerous harvester. There are those who reach a couple or 3 centimeters in length, and that's the maximum. But in days gone by, everything was bigger, and ants are no exception. This year, scientists found fossils of giant ants that dumbfounded even them. I should think so. Judging by them, these insects were as big as modern hummingbirds. Yes, hummingbirds are small. Anyway, it's not possible to compare them with modern ants. They're much larger. That's what shocked the scientists. Scientists believe that prehistoric ants fed on lizards or even small mammals. Again, all we can say is that it's a good thing they're gone. Earth would be a living hell with such giants. No matter how small modern ants are, they're not hard to find. After all, they're plentiful. By the way, did you know how many there are? Scientists believe that the total number of ants on the planet is about 20 quadrillion. To make it better understood, there are about 2.5 million ants for each inhabitant of the Earth. This is astounding, but I don't wonder anymore how scientists managed to count them. Anyway, that's for another time. Right now, let's take a look at an insect that's very hard to find. Here it is. If anything, it's still about insects, not about lobsters. But you must admit that this creature looks very much like a lobster. In fact, it's even named after that animal, the tree lobster. And in general, it's one of the species of the stick bugs you're already familiar with. They are considered the rarest insects on the planet. This is not surprising, considering that for almost a century they were thought to be completely extinct. These insects were discovered on Lord Howe Island near Australia a long time ago. But when scientists revisited the island one day, they didn't find these stick insects and thought they died out. It wasn't until decades later when it was discovered that a small population of tree lobsters had moved to Ball's Pyramid Island near Australia. The species is not extinct, but that doesn't mean it can't happen soon, and conclusively, there are very few of these lobster-like stick insects left in the world. But even these insects are easier to find than other members of the selection. I'm talking about bear flies, and specifically about one species with such a complicated name. The thing is that tree lobsters can at least be seen with the naked eye. With these moppets, on the other hand, that's impossible. They're about 0.139 millimeters long. That's even less than the length of protozoans such as paramecium. They're about 5 times as big. I always wonder how scientists in general manage to find such microscopic creatures and even study them. Thus, they were able to describe the appearance of record small insects as well as understand how they reproduce. Do you still remember those creepy Asian hornets and the number of victims on their conscience? Undoubtedly, these insects are dangerous, although not to the extent that mosquitoes are. What's surprising, purely technically, we can call them the most treacherous and deadliest creatures on the planet. True, we're talking about nail mosquitoes, not ordinary ones. These insects are carriers of malaria plasmodium. The mosquito first becomes infected from a person or other carrier and flies to spread the disease further by biting new victims. Given that nail mosquitoes are widespread in equatorial and sub-equatorial Africa, where the level of medicine leaves much to be desired, they mow down people in droves. More than 500,000 people fall victim to them every year. Scientists believe that for the entire existence of Earth, from 100 billion inhabitants of the planet in history, about half could die from malaria. The scale is simply astounding and horrifying. Well, let's not talk about sad things. Let's listen to insects. It's known that they make a variety of sounds. The same mosquitoes annoyingly squeak, flies buzz, and cicadas chirp. In general, they make a huge number of sounds. Doesn't matter what kind, but it's important that all these sounds are very loud. Cicadas, after all, are the loudest insects on the planet. The Guinness Book record holder is shrill thorn tree cicada, Brevissana brevis. A few years ago, scientists measured the loudness of the cicada and received a value of 106.7 decibels. In general, however, this is not the limit. It's believed that these insects can chirp at about 120 decibels, which is comparable to the volume at a rock concert. We don't go deaf only because cicadas produce sounds at very high frequencies, perceived by our ears quieter than medium frequencies. Without adding this, you can go crazy in a crowd of cicadas because they're loud anyway. The insects can not only be loud, but also fast. When talking about speedy insects, many of us immediately think of flies. It's true that's very hard to catch them and they fly away very quickly. But it's more about reaction than speed. In terms of speed, the fastest is the tiger beetle. It moves at a speed of 4.3 miles per hour. Yes, on one hand, this is very slow, but on the other hand, don't forget the size of the beetle. Only a couple of centimeters long, and considering this, it moves very fast. Scientists have calculated that if the tiger beetle were the size of a man, it would accelerate to 124.3 to 186.4 miles per hour from a place. As for flying insects, the leader is the dragonfly. These insects accelerate up to 37.3 miles per hour. That's why even in a car, you can't always hide from them. Why does a dragonfly fly so fast? Could it be because of its super strong wings? It's really about the wings, but it's more about their movement than their strength. When a dragonfly flaps its wings, the upper and lower wings form a collapsing wedge, causing a jet of air to be thrown backwards. This creates jet propulsion, and the dragonfly flies forward like a rocket. Why forward? The structure of the dragonfly's wings allows it to fly in any direction at all, as well as to change the direction of its movement abruptly and even hang in the air. Speed's been dealt with, but how about strength? When we think of insects, we rarely think of strength because it seems to us that such bugs cannot be strong. On the one hand, they are. Naturally, their force is silly to compare with the power of some elephants, tigers, or gorillas. At the same time, don't forget about the relativity, as in the case of the tiger beetle. If insects were increased many times, the world's greatest strongman would be the door beetle. Everyone knows that it rolls its balloon, but not everyone realizes the titanic work that the beetle does. The ball itself can weigh up to 1.8 ounces, whereas the beetle only a couple of grams. It turns out that the insect manages to roll an object that is 25 times heavier than its own weight with confidence. It's the same if a person can easily push a car weighing 1.5 tons. And the ball is not the limit of the door beetle's strength. Scientists once conducted an experiment and found that the beetle is able to hold a load equivalent of 1,141 times his body weight. Would you be able to hold a couple of heavy tanks? Of course not. But this insect could, if it were enlarged. It sounds incredible to me. Chupacabra, yeti, giant lake serpent. Now I'd like to show you unknown and surprising creatures that were shot only once. Monster from Romania. That's how one might describe the creature found by ordinary tourists in the Romanian forest. When people saw this creature, they immediately panicked and didn't know what to do. The only right thing to do, in their opinion, was call a priest, the person who, in their circles, constantly solves even the most difficult problems. The priest responded to the request and was immediately on the scene, bringing a fellow veterinarian with him. No one told how the story ended, what the creature was, who or what injured it, and what was going on in general. The priest and the vet only dragged the creature away and never wanted to talk about it again. What do you think? Could this be some kind of mystical monster, or are we facing a common mutant? Let me know in the comments below the video. If the previous monster from Romania is still unknown to science, the monster I'm going to talk about now has been known to people for a long time. But this doesn't make it less unusual and interesting at all. The monster in question is the Narwhal, or as many call it, the sea unicorn. Because of its amazing horn, this creature is not afraid to engage in battle. It can, however, tactically retreat, hide, or feign death to avoid conflict. The Narwhal treats people neutrally rather than positively or negatively, but if someone pisses the creature off, it will easily sink even a large boat and catch up even with a fast boat. I think everyone can guess what it can do to its offenders with its 10-foot-long tusk. Besides its great length, this outgrowth is also very heavy. It can weigh up to 22 pounds. There are so many nerve endings on it. The tusk is flexible and can bend at an angle of 30 degrees. Some researchers speculate that narwhals use it to punch holes in the ice to breathe. During mating competitions, they rub these horns, and when hunting, they can stun a fish with their tusk. However, you can leave your own version of its use in the comments. The only thing scientists do know about this underwater monster is what its true population is. However, the fact that there's little information about this creature already makes it clear that this creature is quite rare. And now it's time to talk about a creature which name everybody has known for a long time, but people still can't figure out exactly what it is. I'm talking about the Chupacabra, a mysterious vampire that drinks the blood of animals, has small size, and moves very quickly. Many people have heard frightening stories about this creature, but it's not an easy task to see some video on this topic. Often it's either unclear what kind of creature people shoot, or it's night and only a faint silhouette is visible. Nevertheless, I did find something. The people in this video caught a very rare monster, presumably the Chupacabra. They gathered in a large group and tried to hold it down en masse with ropes. They wrapped the Chupacabra around a tree and waited for help. The creature made horrible, creepy, and frightening noises. It hissed, grunted, and was displeased with what was happening. But no matter how hard the Chupacabra tried, people were not going to let it go. The authors of the video didn't tell how the story ended, how the creature was found, and what it really was, so I suggest you put forward your own version in the comments. While the previous creature may seem like a fake or a mutant to some, the creature in question now clearly doesn't look like someone's mutilated child. It's a very real and healthy bird, a bird that I don't think any of you have ever seen before. It's called the superb bird of paradise. Sounds pretty noble and good, don't you think? As if there should be a stork, a swan, or other like creature in front of us. But it's the opposite. The rarity of this creature is not due to its low population. There's nothing wrong with the population. However, you're unlikely to encounter the bird since it lives on the territory of Papua New Guinea and it doesn't descend from the mountains below 1.2 miles from sea level. These relatives of sparrows have a very unusual appearance. Their appearance is particularly striking when the bird spreads its wings. Just look at how it begins to look. What does it even look like? Some kind of gateway to hell? An abyss? A black hole? Write your options in the comments. This spectacular stance is achieved by the black plumage and the turquoise shield on the breast. The male lifts its wings up and spreads its feathers. The turquoise shield literally glows against the background of the pitch-black ball, outshining the bird's outline. By the way, scientists are sure that these birds take this stand for a reason. It's kind of their trademark. The brighter the light on the turquoise shield, the healthier the individual. And the healthier the individual, the greater the chance that it'll be chosen as a mate. An alternative use of the stand is to scare away enemies. The monster from the lake. As you may have noticed, some creatures have much more literal and figurative names than they really are. This guest, however, is not one of those creatures at all. It doesn't hide its ugly appearance. It's called Lagarflotzomur. Yeah, I almost broke my tongue when I read that name. Why not just say giant worm or lake worm? Either way, it's a horrible creature that lives in the cold waters of Lake Lagerfjord. The first mentions of this mysterious worm dates back to as early as 1345. Of course, at the time, people couldn't catch anything on camera, so we'll talk about the footage from 2012. A local Icelander photographs some creepy creature crawling under the freezing water, giving you goosebumps all over the body just by its appearance. According to the author of the video, this worm is about 262 feet long. But maybe it wasn't a worm at all. Maybe people are mistaken and there's actually a crocodile or a snake swimming under the water the whole time. However, those creatures probably couldn't have lived that long, which cannot be said about worms. In any case, people in the comments split into many camps. Some are of the opinion that the worm is real and has lived on Earth for over 1,000 years. Others are convinced that the video is fake at all. Others believe it's an alien hybrid that can crawl on land as well. It lives underwater for safety reasons, hiding from public view. What do you think? Black and Rufous elephant shrew. I think that everyone on Earth has long been used to the fact that the dogs on the streets seem to be getting smaller and smaller. People prefer, so to speak, pocket options, those in which they'll take the dogs with them on the road and their faithful friends will not take up much space. But if even the conditional Yorkshire Terrier is considered big to you, here's a much more unusual, smaller, and at the same time rarer option. This is the Black and Rufous elephant shrew, a member of the jumping shrews family. A funny little animal that looks like a small rodent. The length of these creatures is only 12 inches. The most striking distinguishing feature of the Black and Rufous elephant shrew is the shape of its elongated nose. It's more like a trunk. This animal has a keen sense of smell and, like dogs, defines its territory by smell and finds intruders. The tail of this animal is commensurate with the size of its body and reaches 10 inches in length. Yes, as you understand, except for the sense of smell, this creature has nothing in common with other dogs. The Black and Rufous elephant shrew even lives in peculiar nests that it builds itself from grass and leaves. Hit the like button if you too would like to see more of these cute mouse-like creatures. Something in the tsunami footage. In 2011, Japan was hit hard by nature. There was an earthquake on the East Coast that triggered a tsunami. The strongest tremors that occurred at that moment in Japan are recorded by scientists no more often than once every 600 years. Apparently, this unusually rare phenomenon didn't please not only the people, the inhabitants of the affected villages, but also some ghost, which has left its shelter and caught in the lens of eyewitnesses on camera. The creature clearly left its home underwater and rushed somewhere in the direction of the nearest attic. People in the comments first accused the author of the video of staging, but once the video was subjected to multiple checks, everyone was shocked by the result. It turned out that the video wasn't fake. Was this ghost real too? At that point, people found a new excuse. In their opinion, it could have been a gas leak or the result of some kind of chemical reaction. What do you think? Bigfoot. Each of you has heard a lot about this mystical creature. Some have seen movies, others have seen cartoons, some articles or speculations about it. But now we'll talk about not the history of Bigfoot, not about his possible existence, but about more than real fragment filmed in 1967. This fragment is still the only in the world in which Bigfoot is filmed alive. The author of the video, along with his friend, were walking through the woods filming each other on camera, but then they got really lucky. Bigfoot came out of the corner. According to the author of the video, a huge, hairy creature walked 23 feet away from them. For several seconds, the author was completely confused. Finally, he came to his senses and followed Bigfoot. After getting fairly close to the mysterious creature, the two guys let Bigfoot see them. The creature turned around and there was a look of obvious contempt and disgust on its face. Nevertheless, he didn't scare the men with the camera. They were going to keep chasing Bigfoot, but he was more nimble and hid from their eyes in the thicket. Stay with us and I'll show you incredible cases of friendship between predators and humans. My friend is a grizzly. They say there's no such thing as friendship between a man and a woman. I don't know. I think it's all about a sincere desire that arises initially. Mostly, of course, the opposite sex is attracted for other reasons, but there are exceptions. Just like a man is able to become a best friend with a bear. It seems that this is complete nonsense and some kind of surrealism, but it's not the case. Naturalist Casey Anderson once went to Alaska. There, he planned to just have a good time and admire nature, but he got much more than he expected. The scientist met a real friend who at that time was bundled with another bear. The two were lying next to their breathless mother, and Casey had no choice but to take them with him. Leaving the cubs alone would have been inhumane. Unfortunately, fate took another bear cub to the other side of the world, one of the surviving pair. The cub had no time to recover and adapt to the new conditions, but the second bear cub not only grew up, but became a full-fledged member of Casey's large family. The big creature was named Brutus. He grew up to 8.2 feet and began to weigh more than 550 pounds. Nevertheless, he remained as gentle and affectionate as he was at a young age. How do you like such a pet bear? Would you want one, or is it too much for you? Let me know in the comments. This is another case of a scientist caring for a wild animal, and he's doing a great job. Dolph Volker befriended a female cheetah called Faith. The poor creature had had meningitis since birth, which severely limited her abilities. For this reason, it's quite risky to release her into the wild, and Dolph fully agrees with this. Once he met her in person, Faith never left his side. An invisible bond flashed between the man and the cheetah that hasn't separated them to this day. Look, they even sleep together, not just lying next to each other, but cuddling, changing positions, and enjoying being next to each other. Thank you, Ranger. I personally last heard such gratitude while watching a cartoon about rangers, but today it's regularly repeated by a hippo. What do rescuers and the animal have to do with it? And why should it be grateful to anyone? I'll tell you why. In the very beginning of the year 2000, in South Africa, there was a heavy rain, which led to flooding. Then the waters of the Limpopo River washed away tens of thousands of acres of harvest fields, and thousands of domestic and wild animals died in the raging river. In short, there was chaos in the wild, during which a female baby hippo was brought to Tony Jobert's boat dock in the early hours of the morning. The man says the animal was only a few days old, at most. She weighed about 30 pounds and was about 12 inches tall. Without human help, she was doomed to die. But the ranger didn't abandon the hippo. He took her with him, found suitable food, and raised her. He raised her with his own hands, becoming a second mother for the animal. At home, the hippo gained strength until it became large and powerful enough. As soon as this day came, and vets confirmed the readiness of the animal for a full life, Tony had to return his friend to her native element. But don't be sad, the hippo hasn't forgotten her family. Even once in the wild, she still lives near Jobert's house, regularly visits him, and brings him some gifts. After that, can anyone say that animals are not smart? Polar bear. Mark Dumas. Remember that name because it's the name of the only person in the world who's been able to establish a friendly relationship with a polar bear. The female polar bear's name is Aji, and she's very big. She's ready to eat everyone, but not Mark and his wife. No one knows how exactly the man managed to make friends with the polar bear, but for sure it was influenced by the 40-year experience of the animal trainer. Or maybe the thing is that Aji herself doesn't wish to perform harm. She quickly acts in movies and behaves quite confidently without unnecessary aggression and attacks. In her free time from filming, the bear can swim in the same pool with her friend. There, they feel very comfortable and well. The main thing is not to disturb them at this moment. Who knows if the predator likes it? Don't forget about the innate instincts of the polar bear. That's all, guys. Would you like to befriend a wild animal? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.